And at this point, let me go ahead and turn things over to Andy Elkins, the athletic director at North Central High School. And Andy, turn things to you.
Thank you, Paul, and welcome everybody here. I believe we have between 40 and 50 people here on this call, so this is going to be great. I'd like to take a quick moment to provide a brief introduction of our speakers for tonight and thank them in advance for their time. Again, as I've been introduced, my name is Andy Elkins. I'm the Director of Athletics at North Central, and I'd like to introduce 4 of our speakers this evening. Paul Green, who is with the North Central Booster Club, and will help facilitate a series of events throughout the year on recruiting. Lisa Salazar, who works at North Central, helping students from the college office. If you don't know her yet, you need to know her. You will know her after tonight. We will also have a special guest, Lauren J., who is a former soccer player at DePaul University and is currently an admissions counselor and assistant women's soccer coach at DePaul. And finally, Bob Hammond, a former goalkeeper at West Point, who was recruited for their soccer program and spent some time post-graduation in scouting and recruiting for the Service Academy. I'd also like to thank all the student athletes and parents who are taking the time to discuss what a post-high school athletic career might look like. So now, with no further ado, I'll turn it over to Mr. Green and we'll get things started.
Great, thank you so much, Andy. So as a parent of a student athlete, I know that the emphasis should be on student. Athletics can provide a great experience for many students who are pursuing a college education, and it can be a large part of that experience. But let me emphasize, I'm not the expert on college recruiting, but I do know a fair number of people who've traveled this road before, and I think there's a lot to learn from their experiences and their observations of the process. So our goal over the next couple of months is to connect parents and athletes with those who have already traveled their own path. But I'm reminded of a conversation that I had with a coach at IU not too long ago. She had a student who was absolutely sold on attending IU, just bought all the fanware and was ready to be a student. Until she, as a coach, asked that athlete what she was interested in studying. And I think you probably guessed the punchline of this. It was not a subject that was offered at IU. So all the fanware has to be returned, and the college experience moves forward. So there are many paths. There's junior college, D3, D1, D2, NAIA, club sports, and all of those paths are good paths. But you need to make sure that you're traveling down a right path, one that will get you where you need to be. So identifying the schools that will provide the resources and educational experience that you're looking for is really the most important step, and it's the first step that you should take. So I'll be handing the baton over to Lisa Salazar for the next few minutes to share an online tool that's available to every North Central student. It's a wonderful resource that can help identify schools and programs that are appropriate to pursue. And of course, the best resource available is Lisa Salazar as a coordinator of college and career counseling. So Lisa, if I can get this to work, I'm gonna give you you should have control of everything.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome everybody. I do recognize some last names on here, so I've either talked to you or your student, which is awesome. So I'm glad that you guys joined us tonight. I do believe we have 2 people in the waiting room, so I'm gonna admit them really quickly. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I've talked with many seniors about Naviance and have just now started introducing Naviance to juniors as well. So hopefully you guys can see my screen there. So again, Naviance is the college and career planning tool. So it's not only good for any student, it's also good for our athletes who are thinking about what do they want to do after high school, and then hopefully that'll align nicely with what they want to what they're thinking about with when they're talking to the athletic departments. So the first thing I'm going to walk through here is the careers tab, or I'm sorry, let's start with the homepage. So here's our Naviance homepage. You can see that there's a welcome message here. I've got my sample junior student right here, the welcome message. So you can see that we had our college and career planning night. and the videos there. Some college fairs that are coming up, that information can be found there. Some important to-dos and tasks. If there's any new information that they should be aware of, if they want to start chatting with colleges, they can find that information here on the home screen. And then down here at the bottom where it says document resources, you can actually look at our scholarship listings that we currently have for our seniors. So that is the Naviance home screen. Everybody, in order to get logged in, is going to use their student ID number as their username. And then for their password, it does have to be a 10 character password. So unfortunately, I do not have access to passwords, but I am able to reset passwords. So we are going to take a look at the careers tab. Just to start talking about this, because as Mr. Green mentioned, you want to make sure that the school that you're ultimately thinking about has your potential major. So on this careers page, there's a lot of great information available for anybody to look at. Here on the right-hand side, it's called Road Trip Nation. And there are over 8,000 videos available for students to watch, and they can range anywhere from 15 seconds to maybe 3 minutes. And it just allows you to get a more in-depth look at the different careers that are available and what you might be doing in that particular career. So great videos right here in Naviance under the career section. If your student is not sure what they want to do after high school, if you scroll down towards the bottom of the page, there are 4 different interest inventories that your student can take. They can take one of them, or they can take all 4 of them. But what's nice is it'll actually provide you with results of what might be some interesting careers that you might be thinking about. It'll then break it down for you and say, these are schools that will have these particular majors for that particular career. And then it'll even go even further and say, these are some different colleges that might be of interest to you based off of these potential majors, which will get you to your potential career. So really great interest inventories. They don't take very long to complete. Again, you can have your student do one of them or all 4 of them. If your student thinks that they know what they want to pursue, but they want to find out more information on a particular career, you can favorite careers that they're thinking about, so that way they can always return back to it. They can explore careers, and they can also explore career clusters. So the careers that I'm going to show you really quickly is we can look up by keyword, by category. You can search by Hammond code. You can find career clusters and pathways right here. And what I'm going to do is just by keyword really quickly, and I'm just going to pull up nursing because that's something I might be interested in. So I'm going to look up which type of nursing I'm thinking about. I'll select it. And then what's nice here is it'll give you the job description for that particular career. It'll give you the Hammond code, which again, you'll get that information if you do any of the interest inventories. It'll tell you related occupations that you might be thinking about, or maybe you want to consider. You can look at the knowledge and the skills that are needed for a particular career, or for this particular career. So it tells you the 5 most important skills, the 5 most important abilities, the important knowledge areas that you would need for that particular career. You can look at tasks and activities. So it'll let you know what are typical tasks you'd be doing, what are the common work activities you'd be doing. And then it also gives you wage information. So, it gives you really everything you're wanting to know, or maybe you're thinking about if you're looking at a particular career. So it shows you what the national wages are, and then it even shows you what your state is. So that's what's really nice about this careers piece here. And then again, you can favorite it, and you can always go back and look at it again later if you're not sure. And so then you would find those right here. So again, that's all under the career section. And then one other page I wanted to show you in Naviance to help you and your student as you're planning for after high school is under the colleges section. If you select scattergrams, you can actually find a school that any former North Central student has applied to, and check to see how you compare to those other North Central students that have already applied to that particular school. So here is my scattergram, and as long as you have an SAT or an ACT score in there. So you can see I've got an SAT score. So this is my little blue dot. It shows me the average accepted GPA for North Central students that applied to this particular school. It shows me the average accepted SAT score. And then here on the graph, it shows all the students that were accepted, all of the ones that were denied, and then I think even the ones that were either waitlisted or unknown. So you can put yourself on this graph. Again, if any former North Central student has applied, you can see where you fall. So you can see here, my little circle is a little bit under the average line, but there's still a lot of green check marks. So I can feel pretty confident that I would have a fairly good chance of getting accepted to this school. Now, it's not going to say for sure 100% yes, you are going to get in or you won't. But again, it just lets you see how you compare to former North Central students that had already applied to the same school. So what's nice here, though, as well, is you can see the deadlines, the application fees, their acceptance rate, any important policies that they might have. Here's our school's application history. So how many students applied, how many were accepted, how many enrolled. Again, you can see this for any particular school that a North Central student has already applied to. Then again, you can see this graph here. If you go even further, you can see what's required for their application, what's recommended, and what's optional. And then it'll go even further of telling you some recommended courses that they want to see your student take throughout high school. And it'll give you some more information there. And then if you go up back to the top, it'll go to studies. So you can see what their job placement rate is, what their student retention is, the average classroom size, the degrees that they offer. So again, a lot of great information that you can start doing now to help get you prepared for what you might want to be doing after high school. And then it'll show you all of the majors that they offer. So again, making sure that the school you're thinking about, if it is for athletics, you also want to make sure that they have your potential major. So again, lots of great opportunities and options here. And I just showed you two different things here at Naviance. The careers piece with the interest inventories, and then the colleges tab with the scattergrams. So again, just a brief introduction to that. Definitely log in, check it out. If you can't get logged in, your student can always email me through Canvas, and we can make sure that they get logged in so that way they have access to this great tool. Let me... All right, Mr. Green, I believe I just made you the host again.
Okay, thank you so much. And the best way for them to reach out to you, say, is through Canvas? Let me make sure we get that.
Students have access to my email address through Canvas, or just regular email as well.
Okay.
I can put that in the chat.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So let me stop there, and we'll kind of switch gears just a little bit. And two of our former student athletes, Lauren and Bob. So Bob Hammond and Lauren J. Now you both played the same sport in college, and I got to ask, come at me if I'm wrong, but are we going to call it soccer or are we going to call it football?
What do you say, Lauren?
I love a lot of English Premier League, but my heart's at soccer, so I'm going to go with soccer.
Yeah.
Soccer. Bob, where are you on that?
It's country, Paul, so I'm calling it soccer.
Okay. All right. So soccer it shall be. So I'm guessing, and just guessing, that you both had very different experiences as both student athletes, as well as I know that post school. You both or Lauren, you're still working as a recruiter and an assistant coach, and Bob, post college, you had a stint as a recruiter. But if you would, tell us a little bit about your experience as a student athlete. As a high school athlete, where did you originally think that you were going to play? And Bob, if we can start with you, I think that'd be a good place to go.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I knew I wanted to play soccer probably my sophomore year. I played a lot of sports, but that became the one that I felt like I was excelling at the best, and it really didn't get serious about it until I was able to I made the New Jersey, I grew up in New Jersey, I made the New Jersey state team. I grew up in a little small farming town, so there wasn't a lot of exposure, but that kind of all of a sudden started to generate letters from schools when I was a junior. So I said, oh, this could be actually happening, that I could actually do this. And that's when I started to get serious about it my junior year. And I wanted to play D1, but I didn't know if I really could. So I picked Duke as my target school, and that's where I wanted to play. But Duke did not want me to play for them. So that was the problem that I had with them. But there were some other D1 colleges that showed interest, that matched up with areas of study that I was interested in, and it came down to a few that were like my final: Lafayette College, William and Mary, and West Point. So some very different schools, but they were the ones that I was choosing between and where I actually had my visits, Paul.
Mm-hmm. Great. So Lauren, let's go to you with the same question. Where did you think you were gonna play?
Sure. So I played soccer since I was 3 years old. I think that was my parents' way of getting me to exude a lot of my high energy into something productive. So started playing at a really young age, and then at 8 years old, I started playing club soccer. So really my exposure started by playing club sports outside of just organized sport during middle school and high school. At first, because of my club sport, I was able to get exposure by a lot of different schools. My junior year and sophomore year, some D1, some Division II, some NAIAs. But as my interest changed by my senior year, I realized that academically, that was more important to me than athletics. Athletics was still very much must have, but it wasn't my main go-to for my decision. So I started to look at Division III schools, because Division III is that perfect sweet, I think, balance between your academics and your athletics. And I wasn't being told, hey, bring your academic schedule to us so we can work around our practice schedule. For me, I knew I wasn't going to play for the U.S. Women's National Team, but I still wanted to play at a high level, but not have to sacrifice potentially my academics. So I started to look at Division III schools. Crazy enough, I didn't attend DePaul, but I went to one of our top rival schools, Denison. And I was getting scouted by a bunch of different teams within the same conference. So Denison, College of Worcester, Earlham at the time, and Wittenberg. And then to throw in the mix, a local college near my parents' house, Otterbein University. So by then, I knew I wanted to do Division III. I knew I wanted to also be pre-med. So that was a huge factor as well. But it was interesting. I thought I was going to do D1, but then I also was like, Lauren, you're 5 foot. I don't think you're going to be a D1 player. And that's not to say there aren't definitely shorter women who play Division I soccer. Crystal Dunn, U.S. Women's National Team player. She is 5'2", and she's one heck of a defender. So definitely is a possibility, but I think I had more realistic conversations with myself as I headed to senior year. And when I finally realized what my must-haves were for my college experience, that's how I kind of narrowed it down to Denison.
Great, thank you. So Bob, you and I were talking earlier today about the, when you were going through this process, getting your videos together and going to those type of camps in the showcase. That wasn't really a thing that was happening when you were going through that experience. So how did you get out in front beyond the New Jersey state team? How did you get in front of recruiters?
Yeah, it was very different. I'm so happy you have Lauren on the call, because it is so much different now with the prominence of club teams and just the level of support for kids that are interested in college. And I mean, I think everybody's got a highlight film these days. That wasn't even talked about. And I was fortunate, really fortunate, I made that team because it did start to generate some proactive interest, which got me excited about it. And then when that happened, when I told you I targeted Duke because they did not show as much interest in me. I actually went to a camp there. That was the one thing you could do. Like a lot of these schools would have camps. And so that was the one main proactive attempt that I made, where I went to a camp there. I let them know I was coming. I had communicated with them that I was interested. But I just wasn't at the level that I needed to be in order to be a serious candidate for their program. The other schools that reached out that were D1 that I kind of narrowed down, I was fortunate enough to have the ability, as I communicated with those programs, to set up an offer, a visit, official visit. And that made all the difference for me in helping me make the decision, Paul. It was just, it's one thing to research the school and talk to the coaches. It was a whole nother thing for me to actually be there on campus with some of the players, spend the night, see what the environment felt like. And that really made my decision much easier once I did that.
Okay. And Lauren, what was your experience?
Sure. So for me, I, at first thought I would maybe end up on the East Coast even. My family's originally from New York City. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be East Coast. And my family then moved to the Midwest. And so for me, I think, considering where I guess my comfort level was, and I knew I didn't want to be too far away from my parents. Denison was actually like a 45-minute drive eventually for my family. But in my initial college search, in terms of thinking of schools that work best for what I was looking for in my experience, first and foremost, did I want to be in-state or did I want to be out of state? So from the list of schools that I gave to you guys, the only one that was out of state for me was Earlham, which is in Indiana. So for me, I knew I wanted to stay in-state, and that changed the game for me in terms of, okay, I'm gonna look at schools that are in-state, thinking about like in-state tuition versus out-of-state tuition, and really just looking at programs in addition to great soccer programs. So I mentioned earlier that I was looking for a pre-medical track, and looking at different schools to see what their acceptance rates were for medical school, what their acceptance rates were for different medical related programs. And that was a huge factor in helping me to kind of narrow down my list of choices. So when it came to exposure, again, I was very broad, and then I ended up very narrow because of what I wanted out of my experience. And then I also knew that I wanted to stay in state.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you. So I think part of the unique nature of what both Bob and Lauren are bringing to us is the post their college career, they both went and did some recruiting. So could you tell us a little bit about what when you were first starting off? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how when you are going to a tournament or you're going to a showcase, do you have a list of people that you're looking at, or how does that work? How do you arrange your visits to things like that?
Yeah, I'll start, Paul. I bet Lauren's probably got a lot more experience with this. I spent time as a graduate assistant. I trained the goalkeepers at West Point, and then part of my duty there was I would go on these recruiting trips to scout players, and then also would coordinate visits for players to West Point. So when I would go to actually watch players in tournaments or showcase events or whatever, I definitely had a targeted list of folks that I was going to check out. And obviously I was open to seeing or finding talent beyond that list, but there was definitely a handful of people that the program had identified, or that had somehow gotten on the radar of our coaching staff, that I would go out and evaluate as far as their potential fit for the program.
And Lauren, a similar experience for you?
Yes, so it's unique, you guys. I provide a unique perspective because I work not just as an admission counselor in admissions, but also as one of the assistant coaches for the women's soccer team here. So I do like double duty, which is great for families because they meet me and they go, oh, well, you're in admissions. This is awesome. Because with Division III schools, as you guys hopefully know, we're not able to offer athletic scholarships. So you are coming here based on your academic merit. And, you know, hey, if you're also a great athlete as well, I mean, it's a win for us, both sides. So for me, it's important that students recognize if they are looking at Division III schools, that your academics are very important. So for us, when we go to tournaments, high school games, showcases of the sorts, we are absolutely similar to what Bob mentioned, having a list of kids that we are interested in. But nowadays, I mean, it is crazy with parent managers or team managers that give us rosters. We get them via email, we get them at the field. So one thing to note as well, because of this pandemic, it's really changed the game for the timeline of communication for different Division I, II, III, NAIA. And at a recent showcase that I attended at Grand Park not too long ago, there were no D1 coaches there. And that was a rule set by the NCAA. So only Division III schools were able to talk to players after the game. And that's a huge asset for us because, you know, we can talk to talent. If I have that list, but I see someone else on that team that really catches my eye and is a position that we're looking to fill, I can talk to them after the game, and I can talk to them not only about soccer, but also about admissions, what we're looking for with your GPA, test scores, other extracurricular activities, because we do a holistic review of a student's application. But what's nice is when there is a coach that is interested in a prospective athlete, that is this person who serves as a secondary advocate for the student, in addition to myself. So it's great to have that perspective, but I think students need to be aware of, hey, I really want to be D1. Well, that's awesome, but as of right now, until I forget what exact month it is next year, but coaches can only watch you on, like, if it's live streamed or if you send them film. So, and I don't know why they made that decision, but with Division III schools, we are able to talk to you. So for us, you know, it's not just about bringing that set list, but if you catch our eye at a game, and a lot of these print offs that the managers have also have students' GPA, height, weight, you know, what high school they're attending. I mean, this is not to date myself, but, you know, I'm a little more seasoned. I graduated from Denison in 2014. So even since then, when I was going through the recruiting process, 2009, 2010, this type of pamphlet wasn't even in existence. And now they have them at the fields. Students have Huddle, different types of film platforms where they can send coaches their quick 2 to 3 minute highlight reel. But a lot of coaches want to see not just that, because of course you're going to pick a reel that shows your best cases, right? We want to see what you guys look like in adversity, in a real-time game, not just, hey, you sent us all your goals, that's awesome, but what are you like under pressure? What are you like with your back to goal? What are you like when the ref calls a play that you're not too happy with? You know, we want to see you in real time. So I think being mindful that, you know, academics are important, absolutely, but highlight reels aren't always enough. So if you guys are able to tell coaches, hey, I'm going to be playing for my high school game, or I'm on club team, let us know, because that will give us multiple ways to see you play.
Excellent. So you bring up a good point there. So the people who are standing out, you have people that are on your radar, but there are people who maybe weren't on your radar that you watch, and you're watching them interact with other players as they're playing. What gets somebody on your radar who maybe wasn't before? Is it the way they interact with the coaches, their teammates, the officials? What's the secret there? How do I stand out if I'm not on your radar?
Yeah, Paul, I mean, if I'm looking for a certain position, then obviously skill plays a big part of it. If their game is at a certain level that catches my attention, that's one thing. But as Lauren alluded to, there's a lot of things off the ball that stand out. The way a player carries themselves, there's definitely some leadership things that show up on how they interact with their teammates. She mentioned how they handle adversity. They get the bad call. there's, players handle that very differently. And, so that tells me a lot about an individual and, how they're going to carry themselves in different circumstances. So I always like to see somebody off the ball with the energy and the support of their teammates and kind of those intangibles that I think are going to add to our team dynamic. And that really helped kind of someone stand out for me. I know they're not always going to have the touches or be in the spot to highlight necessarily their skills, but there's always things that you can be doing on the field that are going to demonstrate kind of your character as well as your work ethic and hustle.
Yeah, Bob, you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, to echo what he said, it's not just for me, what you're doing live action if you are able to get on the field, but I'm also looking at how you conduct yourself on the sideline. So are you cheering on your teammates, or are you mad that you got pulled out because you're a starter and one of your teammates took your spot? I'm looking at you off the field and how you're a teammate, how you're communicating. A big thing for us, we look at, are you coachable? So if a coach pulls you aside, are you taking constructive criticism well, or are you, blowing them off and doing whatever you want? We want to see that as well, because developing to become a college player, you might think you're the best player out there, but there's always room to grow, right? Nobody's perfect. And I think we as coaches want to see, are you coachable? Are you going to evolve throughout your 4 years while you're in college as a player? And so, to echo again what Bob has said, it's not just, of course, what you're doing on the field, but I'm paying attention what you're doing off the field, and how, if you're being supportive, if you're being coachable, if you have a good attitude, because those are characteristics that, might be also demonstrated in your academics or in your professional life. So if you're behaving a certain way because it didn't go your way, are you going to be the same if you are in a group project with a classmate? Or are you going to be the same when you are in a internship and you have to work with other people you might not agree with? But how do you handle yourself? And I think for us, it's important to look at the whole person, not just, of course, hey, they have the best skill out there on the field.
Great. So sort of the flip side to that, so those are the things that make you stand out. What are the disqualifiers? So have you ever gone to, I want to go look at this player, number 12, and you get there and you look at number 12 and say, they're not for us. That's not who we want. What are the things that turn you off when you're out looking at potential players?
Yeah, I think it very much is the flip side to what we just said there, Paul. I mean, it's the player that gets the bad call and is mouthing off to the ref. It's the player that's substituted out and storms by the coach, not listening or willing to have a conversation. It's the player that's not being supportive of a teammate, but tearing down a teammate on the field. It's those, and it's the player that's kind of standing around watching the action until it's their chance to shine. It's like I said, all those things off the ball. Those guys or gals that are working when they're not in the spotlight. They're working to get open. They're working to support the rest of their teammates. When you're not seeing that, and you're just seeing for players that are looking for the chance to score the goal or be in the spotlight, that's a turnoff, and that's someone that's not going to be a positive addition overall to the culture of the team.
Yeah, to bounce off what Bob has already said, definitely the actions. For me too, it's your work ethic. So you lose a ball and the defender takes it away from you. Are you putting your head down? Are you hustling to win the ball back? Are you holding your head up high when you get scored on? You're riling or, getting behind your teammates and saying, hey, we got this, you guys, we got this, let's go. It's those types of characteristics that I'm looking for and how you conduct yourself in that type of high stress situation. It's easy to just kind of throw in the towel and give up. But it's really those kids who are the ones that are rallying behind their teammates and are picking up their head, or you might be, that dreaded 2-0 lead. And a lot of teams can come back from that. And let's say, you keep getting scored on, are you letting it affect your play and your mental state? So I'm looking at body language. I'm looking at tone of voice. I'm looking at lots of different things. So, to say the same things Bob's just said, these characteristics are all really important.
Yeah, I would say I totally agree. Some of the best times that I had to evaluate a player was when their team was losing, and watching that reaction and how they handled that situation probably says a lot more than if you're winning big. At least it provided the opportunity to see how they handle themselves under that in those circumstances. And some really rise to the occasion. Like you said, they're pulling the rest of the teams up and keeping them focused and driving forward. They've got the same level of energy or even a greater level of energy. And then the flip side's true as well. Teams down, and you see the drop in energy. You see the calling out each other, calling out other players, and that says a lot about to me. It said a lot to me about what kind of player they would be in the program.
Great. That's sitting in the stands, and going to tournaments, I sometimes see the scouts, right? So sometimes they're all decked out in the university colors and they got the caps, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're in a ratty sweatshirt, but they've got their clipboards back there too. So you don't always know who's watching, but plan on somebody's watching you when you're out there. So great, thank you so much on that. One thing that you were, and Lauren, I think we're now, D1 is out to April before they can talk to players. So that's got pushed off a great bit. And let me just share this real quick. I don't know if y'all can see that, but that's, so we've now, my daughter's team has now gone to the QR codes for their grades and everything else. So you don't have to have your clipboard and pick up the brochure. You just scan it into your phone and you're good to go once you get back to your office. So trying to make it as easy as we can for that. So if anybody wants to talk about that later on, I'll be happy to share that with you. But the looking at social media and everything that's going on there. So true or false? Do you do those Instagram checks of potential athletes? Is that a real thing? Is that urban myth?
Lauren, I'm deferring to you. Back when I was in school at horse and buggy days, we didn't have Facebook or Snapchat or anything. So this is all yours.
Okay. Well, Bob, thank you. So yeah, it is true. We, not just for sports, but for the admissions process. You guys think all us counselors might hate each other because we have rival schools, but I have friends in lots of different places, you guys. And if they are telling me, hey, such and such student, I think they apply to you as well. We should take a look at this, by the way. So we'll look at Instagrams, we'll look at Snapchats. If people are friends, we have current students who may be friends with students. We look at Twitter, we'll look at Facebook. So whatever you guys use in platforms, not to say we're like Big Brother or anything, but if there's any alarming things that are brought to our attention, we will take a look. And my recommendation for social media is just be mindful, you guys. These are really good practices, to not watch your language usage, watch the photos, but these are all really good practices to help you with your professional endeavors in the future. So, when you guys go to apply for internships for your first job or even graduate schools, a lot of employers are taking a look at this. So this is just good practice to start developing this at an early age. And, for you guys might think we don't have access to your private, but there's always a way, you guys. If it's on the internet, I mean, it's hard to take it back down. So just being mindful of your posts, and we'll even turn to current students who might have attended your high school and say, hey, are you friends with so-and-so? And then if they have access to your accounts, then we can see it. So Coaches, in the past, or not just coaches, but admissions teams have actually revoked admission or scholarships from students because they use inappropriate language, they had an inappropriate post. And for you guys, think about this. It's not just you being a good fit for the school, but the school thinking that you're a good fit for them as well. So you might think, oh yeah, this is my #1 school. But us, we're like, okay, are you going to positively contribute to our campus? And if we don't feel that you are, even though you might think this is the best fit ever, you also have to be a best fit for us. So if your social media is not in check with that, for a lot of schools, especially like, for example, DePaul, a private school, we have the right to revoke your admission decision if we catch wind that something's inappropriate. So just be mindful, don't stress, but if you have to question it, or if you're like, well, mom and dad like this, it's probably a no. So just like, don't post.
Hey, Lauren, since I don't have experience with social media and recruiting and athletics, but I can validate what you said around employment. And it is true that your social media presence can be scrutinized and can play an important part in internships. I know we look at that, and also in the employment decision. So it's something that will follow you for a long time.
Very true. Okay, so we've got a few minutes left here, and what I'd like to do is let's go ahead and open things up to the participants and see if we have any questions for Lauren or for Bob or for anyone else who's on the call. Lisa or Andy? Yes, Kyle, I see your hands up. Yeah, I think you're going to be on
Thanks,
mute.
Paul. I just wanted to also how the students can get transcripts sent to colleges, right? Is that the proper platform for that?
Can you repeat your question?
Just clarifying that, so when we get to a point where we're trying to send transcripts to potential colleges, a lot of times coaches, that's one of the first things they'll ask, hey, can you get me a transcript? And obviously we have unofficial versions, but then eventually they'll want an official one. And I believe that request is made through Naviance, but I wanted to clarify.
For seniors, they should make the request in Naviance. But if it's a junior that needs the official transcript, they can email myself or Lori Stroke, and we can get it sent officially to that coach. But we want the student to initiate that. We don't want just a coach to randomly email us and say, hey, send me the transcript, because we don't know if they had been talking to each other. You can also put your questions in the chat if you would prefer to do that as well.
Yes. Okay, so question here. We don't have a tool like Huddle. How do we create a web presence? How do we let the schools and coaches know about our grades? And what is the most cost-effective video editing site to create a highlight clip? And how long should it be? So, Lauren, let's hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. So great question. Yes, a lot of these sites, they can tend to be expensive, and if you have more than one, I mean, those start to add up. So being mindful of costs, a lot of our prospective athletes, they'll actually, edit. And if you have an iPhone and you have like iMovie, you can actually upload videos through YouTube and create your own channel if you'd like. So sometimes we look at film through YouTube. I don't believe it should cost any money to create your own, unless you get like the premium account, maybe. But for the most part, if you want to use YouTube, that's okay. Other than that, for the grade aspect of things, one thing I do want to let you guys know, and just so that your prospective student athletes are being seen in the best possible light, this is my admissions tip. We want to see at least 6 semesters of grades. taking GPAs with a grain of salt. I don't ever want your son or daughter to get written off by a school because you only provided the coach or, the admission counselor with 4 semesters, 5 semesters, because, that's a very, not a full picture of what their potential may be. So if you are like, hey, I want maybe a merit scholarship estimate, or hey, what could I pay? Typically schools would like to see at least 6 full semesters. So that's by the end of your junior year. So when it comes to grades, you can send in a transcript for freshman or sophomore, but you're not taking the APs yet. You're not taking the honors and the IB or the dual enrollment courses. So, that we only really look at those with a grain of salt. When you start to get more serious about that, that will be your junior and senior year, because that's when the rigor picks up. We want to see, okay, your freshman year, some students do that, like AP US history or AP world history or something like that. But for the most part, you're not taking those crazy rigorous courses yet. So what we really want to see is, hey, as you're getting closer to college, how are you doing in those upper level courses? Are you bombing them, or are you getting A's and B's, maybe a couple of C's? Coaches are going to look at that. And when it comes to video editing, specific ones, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know what families are utilizing, but I've seen Huddle, I've seen YouTube. Those are probably my 2 that I've seen the most. But I can get back to you guys and I can share this information with Paul, and so that he can follow up with all of you once I maybe have talked to some of the other coaches here on campus and see what their prospective student athletes are using as platforms.
Hey, Lauren, just to add to that, and I'd love your perspective. I know we did watch highlights, we did watch video when I was in that process, involved in that process. It's not as prominent as it was today, but I'll tell you, when I went to a game or a tournament and I had the checklist, some of the names that were on that checklist were on there because they initiated contact with us. We didn't find them necessarily. And I think there's still something to be said. I'd love your thoughts on this, to be as proactive as you can with the schools that you think are a good fit and that you're interested in. And the weird thing now, with everything being so electronic, and the question was around a web presence, I mean, a handwritten note stands out like it never has before. And a well-written note with the reasons why you're interested in that school and why you'd be a good fit is a really easy and interesting way to get on someone's radar. So just curious your thoughts on that, Lauren, today's environment.
Yeah, I'm all about go old school. I was the type where my parents were saying, hey, if you attend an event, you write them a handwritten note saying thank you. So I love getting letters from students. But for me, one thing I want to put on your guys' radar, especially if you have student athletes who are just starting the college search process, affinity. So you might have heard also the term demonstrated interest, but a lot more schools are using this as a way to see who's really serious about their school and who isn't, as well as for scholarships. So affinity is the idea, just as Bob mentioned, showing us the love back. So are you visiting campus first and foremost? Are you answering our emails? Are you getting back to us when we call you? My biggest frustration with a lot of student athletes sometimes is, they'll be really tight with the coaches, but they don't reach out to their counselor. They don't initiate those conversations on their own. It's me talking to the parents. So for me, it's hard to discern, okay, who is this student genuinely interested, or is mom and dad just kind of blazing the trail for them? And it's harder to determine that. If I hear it directly from the student athlete's mouth, that to me is more genuine. And as Bob mentioned, with a handwritten note, or even an email, quick email saying, hey, Lauren, thank you so much. I loved my visit to campus today. Let me know what else I need to do to make sure that my application is set. Do you need any other pieces of information? I love when students are the proactive person for this versus necessarily of course, when it comes to the financial side, that's where kind of mom and dad may step in. But when it's that initial conversation, that initial outreach, it says a lot about a student's character when they do that themselves. And it's a matter of just every point of contact that's getting tallied by each school, not just by a school like DePaul. You guys think every email, oh, we count it. So every single tally matters. So I think just being mindful of that, because so many more schools are test optional nowadays. So many more schools are free to apply to, and schools need a way to determine who's serious about them and who isn't. So that, just keep that in mind as you guys are going through or starting that process.
So Lauren, you said test optional, right? So
Yes.
I'm old, and that makes, I don't understand what that is. Are you
Sure.
talking about like SAT and ACTs, or?
Yeah, so a lot more schools, and this is where you guys need to start asking these questions, especially if your son or daughter was contacted by a coach seeing, okay, is the school a test optional school or are they not? What that means is you don't have to turn in your test scores to be considered for admission or for scholarships. They can always help you, and every school is different. So don't assume, oh yeah, this school is. It may change even after the pandemic. I can let you know that DePaul, we're going to be test optional after all of this craziness is over, but some schools are returning back to tests are required. So just because you might have an older son or daughter going through the process now, when your younger one is going through it, a year or two from now, schools might have changed their policy back. So asking those questions right away. But we don't need the test scores to consider you, and that's a genuine answer. For students who aren't good test takers, but they're awesome in the classroom, work on your senior year classes. That's my biggest recommendation. Don't worry about getting this perfect super score. And for a lot of families too, it's not financially feasible to take the test multiple times and get that perfect super score. So I tell students too, if tests are not your jam, just worry about your academic transcript, because a majority of schools look primarily at that. The test scores are very much just kind of an additional factor that we can consider, but number one is going to be your academic transcript.
And that she is talking about the SAT or the ACT, and each different college website will have probably a page dedicated to whether or not you should submit an SAT or an ACT score, and the reason why you would want to, or the reason why you would want to withhold those scores. And each college will have a specific page to that.
So, and we do have in our chat room. So when a student reaches out, so via email or hard letter to a coach, should they attach an athletic resume? And if they do, what should that athletic resume include?
Yeah, so a lot of schools now, including DePaul, you guys don't even have to worry about that paper copy or sending in that. We actually all have, or should have, an athletics questionnaire on our athletic website. So if you're looking to get on a coach's radar, every sport is different. So, with football, there's all these stats. If you're a runner, you have times. For soccer, it might be goals, assists, blocks if you're a goalie. Check out the athletic website for each college. There will be an athletics questionnaire there where you can fill out essentially the same thing here of your player profile. So it's your athletic resume. On there, it'll be stats for your specific sport, but also your academic interests, your GPA, test scores potentially, really just as a way for coaches to see if you would be a good fit for their program or where you would fall within their program.
Great. Sorry, it came on weird time. There's also a question for Lisa. If a student really has no idea what they want to pursue in college academically, how can Naviance help them flesh that out? So if they don't know what they want to do, is Naviance a waste of time, or can some of those tools or questionnaires that you pointed out, can they be helpful in that process?
I would do the interest inventories. As I mentioned, at the beginning, there are 4 different interest inventories in Naviance. So if your student has no clue what they want to do, maybe by doing one of those interest inventories, it'll start providing them with ideas based off of their interests, and might provide them with things that maybe they didn't even think about prior. Or on the other side of that, if maybe your student knows exactly what they want to do, I would still encourage your student to do the interest inventory, because it could either solidify what they're thinking about as a potential major and career, or maybe it'll again provide them with some additional ideas of what they might want to be pursuing, or maybe even to just check out at some different schools, what would I be doing in that particular major? So definitely using Naviance, I think would be very helpful, especially for students that aren't sure what they want to do, just because it'll at least be a starting point to see what they might potentially be interested in based off of how they answer that interest inventory.
Great, thank you. So I see that we're coming up on the top of the hour. So let me just open up for one last final question, if we have any. And if you want to type one in there, if you've got one, that's great. Let me also just give a little bit of a preview of next steps. So this was our first in a series. So where to start? So I think we've got a great start to things. And Lauren and Lisa and Bob, thank you so much. And Andy, thank you for starting us off. Really appreciate everyone's expertise. Some great questions, some great participation from everybody on the call. I think it's just a testament to everyone's interest in this topic. We will also have another call on the 7th, which will be a little bit of a survey with other students, some from North Central, some who took other routes and went to other high schools, and from other sections of the country, but walking us through what their path has been in order to have been successful, making that transition from being a student athlete in high school to college. And then our final one will be the challenges in a COVID-19 environment. So how do we work through what we're facing right now? And those will be posted on Facebook. But if you would like to put them in your calendars, we have January 7th and January 28th scheduled for those. And I'm getting the feeling, and give me thumbs up or thumbs down, but we could maybe benefit from adding an additional one just on electronic usage and how to cut a video and do things like that. Okay, so I'm seeing a couple of thumbs up on that. So we'll look at how to make those resources available to everyone as well. So let me stop right there. Any additional questions, concerns? All right. Again, thank you everyone so very much for your participation, and we'll call it the end of a good meeting. And thank you so very much. Have a good day.